Because it was already happening before you noticed. A tightening, not in the body at first, in the space behind the eyes. A thought appears, fully formed, and somehow claims it has always been there. It doesn't knock. It doesn't ask. It says, "This is happening to me." And in that moment, something closes. Attention leans forward, curious, innocent. It touches the thought, stays a little too long. The thought warms under attention, like metal left in the sun. It gains weight, edges. Another thought arrives to explain it, then another to defend it, another to remember when this happened before. None of them feel chosen. They simply arrive, each one convincing in its own quiet way. What began as a sensation now has a story, a direction, a center. There is now someone in the middle of it. The mind doesn't announce this transition. It happens softly, the way a room grows dark before you realize the light is gone. You are already inside before you know there was a doorway. The body responds late. A shallow breath, a small contraction in the jaw, a holding. But the suffering does not live there yet. Not really. It lives in the meaning. The idea that this sensation says something about who you are, about what you lack, about what must change. Thought turns toward itself, watches itself thinking, judges what it finds. Awareness, once open, narrows into a beam, fixated, protective. It begins to search for causes, for blame, and the search feels necessary, urgent, moral. Without noticing, attention has been conscripted, put to work. The mind starts speaking in full sentences now. Confident ones, sentences that feel like truth because they are familiar. They reference the past, they anticipate the future, they weave continuity. A self emerges not as a thing, but as a pattern, a rhythm of ownership. My thought, my fear, my failure. The pronoun does most of the damage. It gathers experiences and binds them, tightens the knot. Pain, at this stage, is still optional. Discomfort is present, unpleasantness may be, but suffering requires participation, and the mind is very good at participating. It rehearses, replays, refines. Each pass sharpens the image. Each repetition convinces. Soon the thought no longer feels like a thought. It feels like a fact, an atmosphere. You don't notice the shift because nothing dramatic happens. No alarm, no break. Just the quiet sense that this is how things are. The moment awareness could have rested, it leaned in. The moment it could have passed through, it stopped. Not because it was wrong, but because it was interested. Interest is neutral at first, then it becomes attachment. The mind mistakes attention for obligation, as if noticing something means you must carry it. A single idea can now occupy an entire afternoon. Not because it is large, but because it is fed by memory, by comparison, by imagined conversations that never happened. The body stays relatively still, but internally there is motion, a friction. The mind insists this friction is caused by the world, by other people, by circumstances it rarely considers itself. Because the voice doing the explaining feels central, it feels like you. But if you pause, not intentionally, just briefly, you might notice something odd. The voice does not speak all the time. There are gaps, moments between thoughts where nothing is wrong, nothing is right either. Just open space, unclaimed. These moments pass unnoticed because they lack drama. They don't argue for themselves. The mind prefers content, prefers noise. Silence offers no identity. And identity is the mind's most cherished construction, not because it is true, but because it is stable. A self, even a painful one, feels safer than uncertainty. So the mind keeps narrating, keeps stitching. It tells a story of continuity where there are only events, a story of intention where there are only impulses, a story of control where there is mostly reaction. And every story needs a protagonist. The moment something unpleasant arises, the protagonist steps forward, claims it. This is happening to me. And now there is a problem. The problem must be solved, or resisted, or endured, but always referenced back to the imagined center. The mind does not see the loop, because it is the loop. Thought generates tension. Tension draws attention. Attention strengthens thought. Around and around. No villain is required, no trauma, no catastrophe, just this mechanism running unchecked. A memory surfaces, not particularly dramatic, but it lands wrong. The mind compares the present to that memory, finds a gap. The gap becomes a judgment. The judgment becomes a feeling. The feeling becomes evidence. and evidence demands interpretation. Soon, the present moment is no longer enough. It is measured against an internal standard that cannot be met. Time thickens. Each second drags the weight of the past and the pressure of the future. The simplicity of sensation is lost. A sound is no longer a sound. It is irritating or nostalgic or threatening. A thought about the sound appears, then a thought about the thought. You don't notice when awareness stops being spacious. It happens gradually, like a room filling with smoke. At first, you breathe normally. Later, you wonder why it feels hard to inhale. The mind insists the smoke is outside, that something needs to change out there. It rarely suspects the fire is conceptual. Identity hardens through repetition. Each time a thought is believed, it leaves a trace, a faint groove. Over time, the grooves deepen. Certain thoughts arrive faster, more convincingly. They feel like instincts, like personality. You begin to say things like, "This is just how I am," as if that sentence explains anything, as if it didn't arise from years of unexamined narration. The mind calls this realism, maturity, self-knowledge, but it is mostly habit, and habit feels true because it is familiar. There is a quiet tragedy here, not dramatic, not cruel, just unnoticed. Awareness, which could have remained open, becomes contracted into a role. A watcher who is also a participant, a judge pretending to be a witness. The witness believes it is separate from what it observes, but reacts anyway. Each reaction reinforces the sense of separation. A boundary is felt, fragile, defensive. Everything now relates to that boundary. What threatens it, what confirms it. Pleasure becomes something to chase. Pain becomes something to explain. Both strengthen the same illusion. Even joy is recruited, turned into a memory, compared, desired again. And when it fades, as it must, the mind treats its absence as failure. Nothing lasts long enough to satisfy the narrator, because the narrator itself is unstable. It depends on constant input, constant reference. When things are quiet, it grows uneasy. Silence feels like erasure, so it fills the space with plans, with regrets, with imagined futures that feel urgent for no clear reason. The body follows along. Hormones shift, muscles brace. But the original trigger may have been nothing more than a fleeting thought, so small it could have passed unnoticed, but it didn't, because attention lingered, because the mind claimed it, because awareness forgot its own openness. The strange thing is that none of this feels optional while it's happening. Suffering feels imposed, like weather. You say, "I didn't choose this," and on one level, that's true. Thoughts arise uninvited. Sensations follow their own rules. But the belief in them, the identification, that part is subtle. So subtle it hides inside certainty. The mind doesn't say, "I am identifying." It says, "This is obvious." And obviousness ends inquiry. Once a thought is obvious, it becomes invisible. You no longer see it as a thought. You see from it. The world takes on its shape. A single assumption can tint everything. Not loudly, quietly. A sense of lack hums beneath experience. A sense of being slightly off. Not enough. Too much. This hum becomes background noise. So constant it feels like selfhood. You forget there was a time before it. If someone asked when it started, you couldn't say. It feels eternal, but it isn't. It is recreated moment by moment, by thought referring to itself, by attention gripping, by meaning layered onto sensation, all of it happening faster than language. The mind calls this depth, insight, complexity, but complexity is often just accumulation, layer upon layer, never questioned. The quieter the suffering, the more convincing it becomes. No sharp edges to examine, just a dull pressure, a sense that something is wrong without a clear object. So the mind invents one, a goal, a flaw, a missing piece, and the search resumes. What's rarely noticed is that the search itself is the tension, the reaching, the leaning forward, the assumption that something else must happen for this moment to be complete. That assumption rarely speaks its name. It just feels true. Even now, as these words pass through awareness, something may be listening, evaluating, agreeing or resisting. That movement is almost automatic. The mind cannot help but respond. It takes positions, forms opinions, and with each position, a subtle contraction, a sense of I on one side and this on the other. That division is the birthplace of strain, not always pain, often just restlessness, But restlessness sustained becomes suffering, and suffering over time becomes identity. You say this is my life, but it's mostly a pattern of attention, a habit of thought circling itself. None of it announces its intentions. It simply continues. One thought leads to the next. One sensation interpreted. One memory reactivated. The chain feels unbreakable because it has no obvious beginning, but it is renewed constantly, in this moment, and this one. The mind does not need to be loud to dominate. It only needs to be believed, and belief is rarely dramatic. It is the quiet nod, the unspoken yes, the way attention stays, the way it doesn't leave. There is no final insight here, no turning point, just this ongoing process, unresolved, thought arising, attention touching, meaning forming, and somewhere in that movement, a sense of self tightening again, as if it were necessary, as if something would be lost if it loosened, as if the mind were protecting something fragile, something unnamed, something that feels like it has always been here, even now, even as this thought fades, and another one quietly takes its place, and that replacement happens so smoothly it feels like continuity, even though nothing continuous can be found. A thought dissolves, another fills the space, no gap is acknowledged. The mind edits the transition out of awareness, presents a seamless surface. You feel like the same one who was here a moment ago, but that feeling is inferred, reconstructed. It is not observed directly. What is observed, when observation is not already captured, is simpler than expected. A flicker, a sensation, a sound arriving and vanishing. But simplicity does not satisfy the mind. It wants relevance. So it asks silently, what does this mean for me? That question rarely appears as a sentence. It appears as tension, a leaning forward, a subtle urgency. The moment is no longer allowed to be just itself. It must point somewhere else. Even boredom becomes personal. Even stillness feels insufficient. The mind interprets neutrality as absence, as if nothing happening means something missing. So it fills the space again. With commentary, with evaluation, this is too slow, this is uncomfortable, this should be different. Each statement reinforces the same assumption, that experience is failing to meet a requirement. The requirement is never fully articulated, it is felt, and feeling feels authoritative. The body listens, responds, muscles engage around an idea, chemistry shifts in response to a concept. The distinction between physical and mental blurs, not because they merge, but because one recruits the other. A thought alone might pass, but a thought believed recruits sensation. Sensation believed recruits memory. Memory recruits identity. And identity resists change. So the loop stabilizes. You begin to anticipate your own reactions, expect them. You say, I know how this goes, and in that knowing, you replay it. Expectation narrows possibility. The future feels pre-written, not because it is, but because attention only scans for confirmation. Anything outside the pattern is ignored or dismissed as irrelevant. The mind calls this realism again, calls it being grounded, but it is mostly selective noticing. Suffering persists not because it is intense, but because it is familiar. Familiarity masquerades as truth. A quiet despair can feel more trustworthy than a moment of ease. Ease feels suspicious, temporary, unreliable. The mind prepares for its loss before it even arrives. That preparation becomes another layer of tension. Even relief is monitored, as if joy must be guarded against disappointment. So joy is never fully allowed. It is tasted through caution, filtered. The present moment is always being checked against something else, a standard, a memory, an imagined outcome, rarely allowed to stand on its own. When it does, briefly, there is no commentary, just this. But that absence is quickly filled, because the mind equates silence with danger, with disappearance. If there is no story, who remains? That question is never answered directly. It is avoided by telling another story. The self feels necessary because the mind has built everything around it. Responsibility, blame, pride. Even suffering feels meaningful when it belongs to someone. Meaningless pain is unbearable, but meaningful pain can be endured. So the mind assigns meaning reflexively to justify the weight it is carrying. And once justified, the weight feels earned. Letting go would feel like betrayal. of effort, of history, as if releasing the burden would invalidate everything that came before. So it stays, not because it must, but because the alternative is unfamiliar. Unfamiliarity feels like risk, even when the risk is freedom from strain. The mind does not trust what it cannot narrate, so it narrates continuously, even now, interpreting these words, comparing them to something already known, agreeing, disagreeing. That movement is not wrong, it is just happening. But within it, suffering quietly regenerates, not dramatically, just enough to keep the self in place, just enough to feel like someone is here managing something. The strange intimacy of this mechanism is that it feels like you, not something you have, something you are. And because of that, it rarely comes into question. You don't question gravity while standing. You don't question narration while thinking. It feels like the ground, but ground can be examined. If attention loosens, not as an effort, just as a momentary lapse, the machinery is exposed. Thought still arises, but it doesn't stick. Meaning still forms, but it doesn't harden. There is no conclusion to draw from this, no resolution, because the mind immediately wants one, wants to turn even this noticing into identity, into progress. And that movement begins the cycle again, thought arising, attention touching, a self reassembling quietly in the background, not announced, not resolved, just continuing, as it always has, as it does now. As another thought forms, already halfway believed, already shaping the next moment before it fully appears, already tightening the sense of being here, of being someone, of carrying something unnamed forward into whatever comes next. The chain feels unbreakable because it has no obvious beginning, but it is renewed constantly, in this moment and this one. The mind does not need to be loud to dominate. It only needs to be believed, and belief is rarely dramatic. It is the quiet nod, the unspoken yes, the way attention stays, the way it doesn't leave. There is no final insight here, no turning point, just this ongoing process, unresolved, thought arising, attention touching, meaning forming, and somewhere in that movement, a sense of self tightening again, as if it were necessary, as if something would be lost if it loosened, as if the mind were protecting something fragile, something unnamed, something that feels like it has always been here, even now, even as this thought fades and another one quietly takes its place.